So we can think of the material support as a band-aid, right? It's something we can do right now that will help. But in order to not need to constantly be running flotillas to Cuba, we need to allow the Cuban people the opportunity to engage in the world economy the way they want. Political solidarity is going to lead to the long-term changes that make it so that Cuba does not have to deal with this blockade in the first place. The main thing I think that Americans are starting to realize is that ICE is enacting our foreign policy at home. So when Donald Trump wages a war on Latin America, ICE wages a war on Latin Americans within the United States borders. For Venezuela in particular, we saw leading up to the militarized act of aggression, the kidnapping of the Venezuelan president, a lot of rhetoric increasing about Venezuelan immigrants being drug dealers, coming with drugs, being in gangs. And it seemed to come out of nowhere, and it was a bit confusing for us until the militarized aggression against the Venezuelan president occurred. And we saw him labeled a narco terrorist, which is not even a thing that's real. We saw these claims that he was part of a gang that doesn't even really exist. And all of these were part of the same political messaging campaign.
And why is it for you as an activist from the US so important to come here and support Cuba?
So many reasons. They took in activists historically from the United States like Asada Shakur. They've always volunteered to send doctors to help us in our times of need. Cuba has stood with the U.S. even when the U.S. government has tried to destroy them. It's important for me to come here from the United States as part of this convoy to let the Cuban government know that we are not our government, and that not only do we want to end the illegal and cruel blockade against them, but we know that there are lessons we can learn from the Cuban people. Well, the very, very obvious connection is that the money that could be being used in the United States to improve the material conditions for the working class on our schools, on our healthcare systems, is not getting used. It's instead getting used in imperial acts of aggression against not only Cuba, but all of Latin America, as Donald Trump has basically brought back the Monroe Doctrine and said that the entire hemisphere is up for play. Imperialism isn't just bad for the people in the rest of the world being affected directly by the United States imperialist aggression, but it's also bad for Americans at home in the United States.
What do you think should be the work of people within the US, within the the belly of the beast?
The American government isn't going to listen to us. So that's where the socialist education comes in, the consciousness raising comes in, because ultimately we hope that it brings people to realize this system cannot save us, and the only thing that will save us is building a new system. That's the stage we're at. We need Americans to not be afraid of socialism, and furthermore, we need them to understand the reason why socialism is so demonized by the US government. It's demonized because it is a viable path forward that helps the working class, that helps the poor, and the only people who don't benefit from it are the rich.
Yeah, and the only way forward, right?
The only way forward for us to survive as a species is socialism.
Do you have any closing remarks or anything you'd like to say to people in Britain, I guess, watching this?
We stand with you. Socialism is international, obviously, and it's very inspiring to see all of the socialists around the world come together to help Cuba.
Definitely. Thank you so much for that.